check 1 2 1 2. Mic check 1 2 and 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 2. We're in the building right now, ladies and gentlemen.
Check 1 2 and 2. You are now in the building with Coach K, and this is the Hustlers Journal podcast.
Listen up, boy, I be a coach, teaching how to think different with a new approach. I hope you're taking notes. Haters think it's jokes. They got me fired up, but they don't want the smoke. Life only grows in knowledge. They don't get the logic. It's the road less traveled that I got my mileage. I don't care for comments. Show me your hustle. I'm only here to build your physical and mental muscle. There's some things you must do. Better listen in. It's the Hustler's Journal. I'll show you how to win. I learned from the greats, plus my own takes. I'm the one people come to for losing weight. See, I aspire to inspire while you perspire. That's my empire. There's no time to quit. Don't care how you're feeling. You better stand up when Coach K is in the building.
Mic check 1 2 and 2, ladies and gentlemen. You're now in the building with your boy Coach K, and this is the Hustlers Journal, another special episode, Mental Health Matters Part 2. And here we are sitting down once again with another good friend of mine who has been a guest of the show before, and she's back again because we're going to be discussing Part 2 of Mental Health Matters. Episode 13, we discussed with another Tania. Shout out to Coach T, Coach T MTL. But today we're going to be talking to another Tania Vincent. Again, she was a guest prior to. Back in the spring, we discussed the topic of mental health and how it's affected her. We identified a number of things, and now we're going to go through a follow-up to see how she's doing, as well as providing you guys with a game plan, certain things that you can identify to help you along the way. Because regardless of whether we want to admit it or not, we're all going through something right now. Everyone is going through a struggle or a challenge in some way, shape, or form. And we're not sure how to come out of this rut. I was just having a conversation with my client this evening who was telling me about her friend. And she said normally her friend who's like high energy, full of life, just now started to feel like, man, this is taking a toll. And it's all about identifying what things are affecting you, having the conversations about it that really is able to help us to come out of these ruts and find a way towards, I guess you can say figuratively, the light, so that we can identify and solve these issues and challenges as best as we can. Of course, some issues and challenges go deeper than the surface. We're not going to get too deep into things because we're not specialized professionals, but we are two individuals who have had experience with mental health challenges and situations, and myself being an advocate of it, as well as Tania being an advocate of it, as well as others out there who are advocates of mental health and the importance of having these conversations and talking about these things. It's very, very important that we take the time to discuss these things. So this is going to be part 2. And once again, I want to welcome my good friend, Tania Vincent. How are you doing tonight?
Hi, Kareem. I'm doing very well. Thank you.
Excellent.
Thanks for having me again. I'm really excited.
You're very welcome. If you don't know Tania, if you haven't seen the last episode, Tania is a personal trainer out of Montreal. She's also a wellness coach. Her Instagram tag is Bloom by Lotus. She's the studio owner of Bloom by Lotus, which also has been affected, unfortunately, by this pandemic, as it has affected everybody. Like other studios, her studio closure has obviously affected herself as well as her clients. But she's finding a way to try and stay positive amid all things. One thing I will admit, though, looking at you now, you do look a lot lighter than the last time I saw you. In the sense of like your energy. Now, I'm not talking about weight. I'm not talking about weight, guys. Calm down. I'm not talking about weight. I'm not trying to be insulting here. I'm just saying, as far as like your posture, your position looks a lot lighter, which can definitely show that something has changed. And we're going to go into a little bit more in depth into that.
I thought you were insulting my tan for a second.
No, not at all.
I get very much sun lately.
I know a lot of people have been affected by that, right? Get their tan and stuff like that. But obviously, you've made major strides since we last had a conversation, and we were talking about that before in the before this conversation. But before we start, of course, I want to send a special shout out to everyone out there who's going through a challenge right now. Whatever obstacle has you feel like you're stuck, you might feel a little bit stranded, you might feel a little bit down, frustrated, angry. We know that this situation doesn't seem like it's going to end anytime soon. But at the end of the day, we always want to look at things from a positive perspective. We want to try and shift our focus a little bit. And hopefully through today's discussion, we're going to help you to do that. In addition to what we discussed before in episode 12, we're going to try and cover the same thing again this time around, with more still to come going forward. So it's definitely an opportunity for us to show support to our family members, our friends, our coworkers, our clients, our acquaintances, our neighbors, even people in the community that we are able to be around. But also an opportunity to learn and to grow by learning about their challenges, what other people are going through, and realize that we're all going through a similar thing. I like to say, we may not all be in the same boat, but we're definitely in the same storm. We're all being affected in some way, shape, or form. So we definitely want to keep that in mind as we move forward. So again, we say welcome, Tania. And the question we want to ask, biggest question, how are you? Now, the reason why I ask that question is because a lot of people ask that question to somebody. They never really get a real answer. Someone always just says, yeah, I'm okay. But it doesn't really go any deeper. So now we get a chance to do that for you. So how are you?
I'm good. I'm considering everything that we're all dealing with. I'm doing well. I mean, mentally, I feel a lot lighter, like you said. I might look lighter, but I feel lighter, definitely. For sure. I mean, like every day is a different day. I feel like it's been it's been like an emotional roller coaster. I mean, I'm sure it has been for everybody. But overall, honestly, I'm doing really well. Working on myself a lot, so I feel good. I feel good overall.
That's good. That's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome. Now, obviously, from the last conversation that we had, it opened up a lot of ears and also opened up a lot of conversations. You were telling me about that too. Discuss a little bit how things have changed for you since then.
Since our last interview?
Yeah.
Things have been very different, but in a very positive way. Mm-hmm. I feel like it's only been going uphill. Could have been the opposite, but honestly, I feel like, first off, I feel like the interview had helped me, express myself on a deeper level, just because it was very important for me to help other people at that time as well. So I was just, trying to explain myself and express myself as deep as I could. And I just feel like as I was doing that, I was kind of listening to myself as well. I think I listened to the interview like 25 times.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, I don't know if that's weird.
Better than me. That's good.
Weird, but I think like in a matter of like a week, I listened to the interview like 25 times. And honestly, the more I listened to it, the more I was like gaining the strength to get better and better. It's always been part of me to help others. But again, sometimes you have to hear yourself and understand where you're at to see where you need help as well, or where you need, improvement.
Right. So
I feel like it helped a lot for others and for myself at the same time. Mm-hmm. I've been, like I said, it's been uphill. I've done a lot of work on myself. I took time for myself. I mean, that's a lot. That's what we had, right? We have a lot of time for ourselves right now. So I did a lot of work, internal, external. I worked a lot on my health as well, my mental state. I was alone. Obviously, I live by myself, and it was difficult because it's like you're within your four walls, and sometimes you feel like maybe being around other people might, bring you up a little bit. But I feel like it was the right way for me to do it. I feel like I was put in this position to better myself for real this time.
That's awesome.
We say it all the time. I'm bettering myself. I'm working on myself. But are you really, really, really going on the level that needs to be improved? Sure. So I feel like we do a lot of surface work, and not internal work. So honestly, it's been better. It's been good. My anxiety has decreased. We'll get into that.
For sure.
Anxiety has definitely decreased. My moods are obviously, yes, up and down because of the circumstances, but much better. Much better.
That's excellent. And it's amazing that you actually bring up that point about surface work and people making changes and saying they're bettering themselves, but are they really? I remember a friend of mine was saying to me before the year started, was like, if you're carrying the same weight in last year that you're bringing into this year, have you really changed, or are you really changing what you're doing, right? Yeah. So it's definitely worth paying attention to, and that's amazing. I'm happy to hear that you've been making those adjustments and changes, for sure. You've had obviously time to adapt to these changes that have surfaced since. I mean, since the last time we spoke in the spring, things have changed, externally around us, not just the season and the weather, but also to just the circumstances of everything happening. A lot of ups and downs people have had. I'm pretty sure you've had some yourself. How have you been able to manage and to cope with that? Like, what things have you done to kind of change that for you?
A lot. I mean, I feel like it's a lot. I feel like I've done a lot of changes. Example, I really took the time to step back and first off, look at my surroundings. I feel like it was one of the, biggest things I needed to do at that point. So I stood back and I observed, and I realized that there was a lot of cleaning up to do. Not necessarily, in a bad way. I'm not saying that everything around me was terrible.
Right.
Just maybe not for me, and where I want to head and where I want to be and where I feel I need to be right now in my life. So, sometimes you're just not where you should be in terms of the people who are around you, in terms of the amount of time you spend with certain people, whether it's family, whether it's a friend, whether it's a person that you've known for God knows how many years. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, right? So I felt like just stepping back for a little bit and observing my surroundings helped a lot. So that's definitely something I did at first. Because I felt like, if I've been feeling like this for such a long time and it's only getting heavier and heavier, what am I doing or what is around me that is not helping?
Right.
So honestly, that's the first thing that came to my mind. I was like, maybe it's time to make some changes, So that's definitely, that was definitely part of it. After that, I would say just use my time for me. Since we had so much time,
right.
Usually I would probably just find other ways to work crazy hours and, keep myself busy and do things that don't necessarily involve like my well-being.
For sure.
I think we all know what that's about. We like to throw ourselves in our work a lot of the times. And yes, my work is something that I love, but at the same time, I felt like I needed me for that moment, at that moment. So I took a lot of more time for myself. Honestly, I watched a lot of shows. I watched movies. I watched documentaries. I never, ever used to watch TV. Like, never even took ever. Like, my TV was never on. Never took the time to just chill, lay down, watch a series or a movie that will make me feel good or anything like that. Watch dance videos. When I was young, I used to be in dance and watch a lot of dance videos, and it would make me feel good. So I went back to that. I would just do things that I love. I love to color. I love to do photo shoots. So, when we were allowed to hang out with, a friend, I would call up a close friend. We would, go downtown and do a photo shoot for fun. Just do things that you like. Yeah. So I kind of got back to that. I had lost a little bit. I had kind of forgotten about, what are the things that I like to do besides the gym, besides helping others. So yeah, I kind of fell back into my old routines, my old hobbies and things like that. I called some old friends and family, got very close with my family. I did a lot of cleaning in my apartment. Decluttering helped me a lot. It sounds crazy, but it helps. It helps. For me, it's like, when I clean around me, it's like I clear my mind. Yeah. So I did a lot of decluttering. I did a lot of redecorating. I did train a lot this summer. Got back into training. Took a lot of sun under the sun. I'm a summer baby, so the sun is like right now is
there's sun, but it's
but the sun does a lot. It does a lot for me. So I've always said that. So I didn't necessarily travel, but I was outside a lot. Took some walks, went in the woods. Just enjoyed my time and just relaxed a little bit.
It's good. One thing, as a side note, if people don't know this already, they should. Vitamin D is essential.
Yes.
So now that the sun is not out as often, well, it is out, but you got to be outside to actually experience it. And of course, you have to decide don't want to be outside and brave the cold when it's a little bit cold and still taking some sun or some bright light, or not. You got to find a way to get your vitamin D in your system, because definitely that will be a game changer.
One way or another, you have to get it for sure. Yeah. Definitely.
For sure.
Yeah.
That is amazing. I know that briefly you had spoken to me. You even said like you found your relationship with your mom change as well. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I feel like my relationship with my mom, my dad, has improved a lot. I mean, I've never been distant from my family.
Right.
I've always been family oriented. It's very important in our family. I was brought up, going to auntie's house, grandma's house, my uncles, my cousins. We were always all so close.
Right.
I just feel like as the years went by, when I found my passion and I started my career in the fitness industry, and I was super focused 24/7, 7 days a week, which is great. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that if you love what you do. I kind of just disconnected a little bit with my family.
Right.
Not necessarily in an intentional way, but when you are working crazy hours, you just want to go home after. You just want to go home and chill, do your thing, fall asleep, get set, wake up at 7 and start over again.
Yeah.
So I was kind of in that routine, and as the years went by, it kind of like it separated us a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I would still stay in contact, obviously. I always stay in contact, but the interaction in person, the moments being spent together, just sharing conversations, like we grow now, we're older, we have different types of conversations now with our parents. So back then used to be one thing, but now it's like you can actually sit down. I sit down with my mom and I talk about anything and everything, and it feels great.
Yeah.
So I kind of developed that over the last couple of months. So it's been really good. It's been a big help as well.
For sure. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And speaking of help, I know that a lot of people did reach out to you since our last conversation. Some conversations, we had a little follow-up and we discussed that before in the spring. A lot of people had some questions, which we're actually going to get to. And to make sure that we identify some questions that were asked, Tania did some groundwork, and she asked people some questions, mentioning that this was going to be the episode that we're going to be discussing part 2. And we're able to ask some questions there to get some answers out there. Of course, we want to remind everybody, we're not certified professionals. This is just based on our experiences and what we've felt. I'm a very, very big advocate of mental health. I definitely believe, and I'm pretty sure Tania feels the same way, and others out there who are listening, mental health is probably going to be the most important aspect of our work going forward. Considering what we've experienced in the last year, a lot of people do need the space and the time to talk and to communicate. And you mentioned that, like you would work crazy hours and stuff. Did you, not just because, not that you just like worked so that you can build your brand and build who you were as your business, but did you find that you use that as an outlet to kind of escape what it is that you were dealing with, and you decided, I don't want to talk about it, I'm just going to do this instead?
100%.
Yeah.
And I'm only realizing that now because I'm taking the time to dig deeper and to look back at my patterns that I've developed in the last couple of years. Where did I not necessarily go wrong, but where was I really focusing all of my energy towards? So 100% yes. I feel like maybe on top of it being my my grind, my career, my passion, it was also an outlet. I wasn't as, let's say, if we're talking about anxiety on that subject, like I wasn't honest with myself about it yet.
Right.
I didn't know enough about it, and I definitely didn't accept it yet. So when I would, just throw myself in my work and do crazy hours and, go to bed and wake up and like always on a routine, always on a schedule, I didn't have time to think about it.
For sure.
So it's hard. It's like it was an outlet, but now I don't look at it as an outlet anymore. I kind of look at it as like that is what made it so hard for me to dig out now.
Okay.
I don't know if I explained that correctly,
I think I get what you're saying.
Yeah, because I did that, it made it that much harder for me now. That's basically what I.
Okay. So basically, it's like you had a level of dirt, let's say,
Yes.
that you could have dug, and you just put more dirt on top of it, and now it's like, man, I got to dig even deeper to kind of get.
Yeah, because yes, like my job, my career, my passion, all of that was an outlet in a sense.
Right.
But was it really? Because an outlet should be something that helps you feel less anxious and less, whatever you're feeling.
Yeah.
If it's a negative emotion or whatever you're feeling, you should feel a lot better when you're doing it. And yes, in the moment I would feel good, but if it would get quiet, I would realize that I'm actually really not okay.
Right.
So how much of this is really helping me?
Right.
It's kind of like a Bandaid, not so much an outlet, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're just gonna cover.
I would say, training was an outlet for me when it came to my anxiety before it became my career. That, yes. But once it was my job, and my day-to-day, thing to do, like my schedule was full all the time, whether it was meetings, whether it was training, whether it was a client, whether it was class, whether it was reading a book. It took a lot of my time, so it was more of a Band-Aid, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we're thankful that you were as honest as you have been. Opening up about these things obviously is not comfortable. Again, given the first conversation that we had and the conversation that I've had with various people thus far this year, well, 2020 we're talking about, things have gotten in depth a lot more with friends and some family members and clients as well. How has your opening up about your feelings and all your emotions, how has that benefited your clients? Because I know you said you're big on relationships with your clients. You mentioned that in the last interview. You're big on your relationships with your clients. They're very, very close to you. Like, how did that improve with them?
Tremendously. Oh my gosh. It's improved our relationship as trainer and client, but we've also built, like I said, greater relationships than that. Like, it's beyond trainer and client, and it's improved in the sense that it's improved my service. It's improved my not my honesty. I mean, I'm a very honest person, but I mean, when you kind of like just try to hide something and put up front, it shows. A lot of people could see that, and it just changes the vibe. It changes the impression that they get. It changes the way that they might feel comfortable or not around you. So I feel like once I opened up a lot more, I explained myself a lot more. I was honest about how I feel and how I deal with anxiety. It's just like it kind of just unblocked a lot of things. It opened them up as well. So they became very vocal about their anxiety concerns and their triggers and their experience with it. So we got to know each other on a deeper level. And by getting to know each other on a deeper level, an honest level, I just feel like everything else just grew. Like the vibe in the gym, the workouts, the results, the motivation that they have to come to the gym, it's like 10 times more.
Yeah.
Just because I feel like it made them feel like they were coming into a safe place.
Nice.
Honest and safe place where they can just be themselves as well. Because not only would I put up a front, but they all dealt with anxiety as well and put up a front as well. Because, a lot of them ended up letting me know that they feel the same and they deal with the same thing on a regular basis. So it was like, wow, And also it improved our conversation and, how we could be there for each other outside the gym as well.
Nice.
Great. Yeah, it's great. It's till this day, every day, it's the same thing. Well, when I see them, it's the same thing.
So you took the plant that you were out of the soil that you were in,
Yeah.
repotted it, and things obviously have grown from there. That's amazing. That's great to hear. And again, I'm happy that you're able to share this and be open and honest with your experiences thus far. Because as I mentioned, a lot of people are going through some difficult trials sometimes, and they're still wondering, how do they work around their thoughts and their feelings and stuff. And you mentioned triggers. Now, last time we spoke, you were able to identify what your triggers were. But one question that was asked was, how did you know what your triggers were? We never really got into depth with that. So maybe you can expand a bit on that. How did you know what your triggers were?
Again, I'm not a specialist, but for me, in my experience, what helped me find my triggers, what helped me understand what triggers me to either have an attack or feel some type of anxiety, I had to really, again, if you don't understand your anxiety or don't want to admit to yourself that you deal with it, it creates a barrier. It creates like a wall, and
it's hard to see.
Yeah, you won't see them. So it's only when I really started to, I hate saying the word dig out, dissect. Only when I started dissecting what I was feeling and trying to understand it more and accept it, that I was able to really learn what they were.
Right.
So once I kind of like broke down the barriers, broke down those walls, dissected a little bit, and really feel my anxiety, let myself feel my anxiety, because sometimes kind of just, again, you put up a front. I was letting myself be vulnerable, and by being vulnerable, I would find myself in these attacks, and I would just pay attention to what just happened or what is around me that just bothered me.
Yeah.
It can't be too far. Yes, sometimes it could be an accumulation of, I don't know, let's say you had a tough week. Right. It could be an accumulation, but most of the time, for me, in my experience, it's nearby. Something just happened that triggered me. So a lot of the times I would just backtrack.
Okay.
Feel what I feel, and then just kind of sit there and reflect. Okay, what just happened?
Yeah.
The person that triggered me, was it a word that somebody used that triggered me? Was it a space that triggered me, a location, an uncomfortable space? Was it something that's on my chest that I haven't vocalized in a while that I feel like I should? Sure. I really, really, really dissected it, and in every single situation, I was able to really, point my finger on what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I figured my triggers. You have to take the time. You have to. It's work. You have to put in the work to be able to understand it.
Yeah, it is, and it's basically like a map going backwards. So
exactly,
when you get to that point of, okay, I have this feeling I'm here. When you mentioned going backwards, you got to backtrack now and go, okay, so to get here, what street did I turn on?
Yeah.
Okay, and then how did I get to that street? Well, I had to turn here. How did I get to that street? Well, I had to take this highway. How did I get to here? I had to cross this bridge. Like, there's always going to be something that connects to something. So understanding what your trigger is, basically a trigger is a cue. So you know that on cue, when this happens, the reaction is going to be this. Yeah. So you got to know, what is it that's going to start the cue off? Is it going to be one thing? Is it a series of things, as you mentioned? Is it an accumulation of things, or is it just one identifying mark that really makes you go, okay, when this happens, then this happens, and now this happens? So as you mentioned, you do have to dissect it and break it down. It's very, very important that people take the time to identify what it is for themselves. I sometimes I think to myself, what is it that makes me feel like I'll have a period of time where I might just shut down, and I'll think, okay, so what caused me to do that? Well, there had to be something maybe that was said. Maybe it was an attitude or an energy that I got towards me that basically reminded me of something. So that was a trigger, but something actually started that first, right? And if it was maybe something that bothered me initially, and I'm able to tie it into that now signaling off a trigger, which is now going to cause this reaction to happen, there's always got to be something that's going to be the lead up to what it is. And once we're able to find what the lead up is, it does make a difference for sure. So there isn't any real like scientific type of like basis as to how things kind of start. They just end up starting from something, but you have to know that there's always a beginning to how you feel. And it can't just be that a person just comes about and feels a certain way. I mean, yeah, sometimes they do have those things, but typically it's because something you felt or you smelled or you heard or you sensed around you was able to then set off that. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, later on down the line, some years later, someone says pandemic and it just sets off this itch in your arm. And all of a sudden it makes you think, oh yeah, I remember masks, and everything just starts going kind of wild, because it's that sometimes it's even just hearing the same thing over and over again can actually be the thing that becomes the catalyst behind your trigger, which then leads you to feeling the way that you feel. So it's good on you that you were able to identify that. So in your whole, like, I don't want to say revelation, but you're learning, you're uncovering, what strengths did you uncover about yourself?
You know, I've always known that I've been very empathetic.
Okay.
Very compassionate, very understanding. But I never really looked at it as a strength.
Okay.
But I'm starting to realize that, you know, it is. I really feel like it is. And by, you know, discovering myself a lot more and learning myself a lot more and dissecting all these things, I'm really learning to look at these qualities for what they really are. And they're great things, right? So I just feel like it comes down to how you use them. Mm-hmm. And it's helped me a lot to take the time to reflect on this. And I just feel like a lot of the times, a lot of people say like, oh, I'm so empathetic, I'm too understanding, I'm too passionate about this, like it's heavy. But for me, it was kind of the opposite. Mm-hmm. It kind of made me switch up that mindset. It made me realize that it was actually a strength. And sometimes being so empathetic or passionate or understanding towards XYZ could have possibly brought a little bit of anxiety on me. Mm-hmm. Just because I would put so much into that certain situation because I'm that person. Right. But instead of, you know, letting it weigh me down, I kind of learned to use it as my power. Okay. As a good quality. Like, yes, I'm empathetic, but not to the point where I'm going to let it destroy me. Right. But to a point where I'm going to use it in a way where it can benefit me and another person, whoever needs that person. For sure. And just make it be something positive. Yeah. You know? Not everything has to be negative. For sure. You know? Like a lot of the times we look at certain things and certain habits and certain characteristics or certain personalities that we have, and we kind of like, yeah, but I'm like that. Yeah, but I'm like, yeah, but look at the good side of it. Yeah. There's always a good side to it. Yes. It's all about changing. There will always be somebody who needs an empathetic friend. There will always be somebody who needs somebody to teach them what it's about to be passionate. Right. You know, I found my strengths within all this. It's hard because sometimes, you know, you don't want to, if you don't put in the work, you won't really find these things. But I feel like those are a couple of things that I found that were my strong points. Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah. Bravo. That's amazing. That's remarkable. So resistance can be a not so great thing, but also can be a good thing that could lead to something great, because resistance can train you to be stronger. So when you're experiencing or uncovering something that you figure could be a weight, you don't realize that weight could actually help you to build and be stronger, because it's that resistance that might be the thing that pulls you back that you have to pull against, or the thing that pushes you back that you have to push against. And as you're pushing or you're pulling, you're building along the way, and you're getting stronger, and you're able to build a tolerance to help you along the way with that. And opening your mind to the possibility of, okay, so how do I overcome this resistance? How do I deal with this resistance?
how do I push this? How do I pull this? How do I climb? How do I dig? You start to strategize. And when you start to strategize, again, that opens your mind to thinking of the possibilities. So as Tanya was mentioning, when you look at everything in a negative way, your direction is only one. Whereas if you see things from, okay, but there's also this side of the resistance too. How could this help me? Now it opens up potential to see everything else that might be there, and you're able to uncover your strength along the way. So that's amazing. That's awesome. So we were in discussion before. We talked about some questions that some persons did have. So in your digging, your researching, we did get some questions that we're going to answer. And we're going to get Tanya to answer. I might answer a little bit. I myself, I don't want to be one to talk that much because I do talk a lot as a host of this podcast. But of course, it's for Tanya to express herself and to be able to explain and to provide certain answers to certain questions. So I do have these questions here that I was given, and we're going to go through them one at a time. And if there's anything else that does come up that Tanya that does come up you want to address as well, we can do that. So one of the questions asked was, how do you not let your anxiety stop you from living your life?
Yes. I will admit that it wasn't always like that. I completely understand where this question comes from. Because, like I had mentioned in the first interview, my anxiety used to make me feel like I couldn't be functional. It would literally paralyze me. So it was such a dark place because it's, it plays a huge role on your mental when you can't get out of bed because you're so freaking nauseous, because you're so anxious,
right,
and you can't eat. Like, I know I'm saying a lot right now, but that's what it is. It's a whole vicious circle.
Right.
So you're super anxious. It makes you completely nauseous. You cannot eat. You're losing a whole bunch of weight. Now you're unmotivated to go train. You feel like you just lost all your results. Now you're not getting out of bed. Now you're not going to work. Now you're not making money. And now you're struggling because you're not making money. So if you really look at it, it's a whole vicious circle. And I was there 100%. My anxiety used to make me miss school. There's mornings I would not go to class. I'm not even going to lie. Again, I'm a very honest person. There's days that I couldn't even go train my client. It would literally paralyze me.
Yeah.
Now, if I look at myself now, it's a whole other story, just because I was able to put in a lot of work, dissect everything, understand it. No, I'm not at a point where I understand everything, right, but with the work that I've done so far, it's helped me understand that it's all in your head. This whole feeling of being paralyzed, what goes on in your head is literally what is controlling you. So if I never really changed my mindset, I would have probably still been doing the same thing.
Still be in bed right now.
Exactly. I know, a lot of the times, it's mindset, be positive. Like, we hear that all the time. And sometimes you just want to be like, shut up with that. Being honest. Like, sometimes we're just like, it
can be toxic sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't want to hear it and we don't want to believe it. But from the bottom of my heart, it is probably the biggest thing that's helped me. I haven't, my mindset, like everybody else, is not always, where it should be. It's normal. But I've changed a lot of my ways of thinking.
Yeah. So
it's helped me kind of just break down that barrier, break down that feeling of being paralyzed. I tried to look at things differently. I tried to, I did step back and realize this whole circle that I was just explaining. Right. I realized that, I'm only going to make it worse if I stay in this circle.
Yeah.
Do I want to stay like this? No, absolutely not. Who does? Right?
Yeah.
So it all starts from here. It all starts from your mind. As hard as it may seem, as annoying as it may sound sometimes, it's really what it is. It all starts from there. It's just like when we say, if you're not good here, I can't help you here, like physically. When somebody comes to the gym and she's not right, how can she get a good workout?
Yeah.
Right? Well, it's the same thing. So it really comes down to answer the question, it really just comes down to mindset. You know, I could probably possibly give other examples, but that's the biggest one. It was my mindset.
Yeah. And it's great that you brought up the part of mindset and also the things that we say, the things that we think about. There's this term that's out there right now, toxic positivity. I know that I've seen articles and various posts about how it can be very damaging to people because we're trying to encourage somebody by, you know, encouraging them to be positive, but sometimes people just have to feel what they feel to be able to identify their triggers and stuff like that, because that positivity, although it's coming from a good place, could actually end up being something that masks what it is that's underlying making a person feel the way that they feel. But mentioning too that the person also mentioned about feeling stuck in one place and can't get out of their comfort zone, you'd be surprised to realize, even if you think about it, as Tania was mentioning that cycle that you go through, your bed could be your comfort zone when you're in this situation, not realizing that you get used to the air in your room, you get used to the air and that space that's there, and now your mind and your body and your thoughts become limited to that one space.
Yeah.
And this is not a knock against anybody who is, you know, really going through depression and stuff like that, and they really can't get out of bed, because I can't imagine what that must be like. And I'm not even going to say I totally get how you feel. We're not going to go on a limb and say that at all, because I personally don't know how that feels. Maybe Tania has had experience with that before. But at some point, you do have to take one small step. And one thing that our minds and our brains will register is just a small. And once you're consistent with the one thing at a time, even if you just are able to get up out of bed, even if it's just to go to the bathroom and come back, at least it's still a step out of your bed. And then it becomes a step out of your bed to the bathroom, to the kitchen. And then it could be to your, you know, like it just goes in pieces. But you have to be willing to go through the initial discomfort of, I'm not used to this air outside. And realize that, well, the air outside is actually going to help you breathe, because continuing to breathe in that same air or being in that same frame of mind that hasn't helped you to get past the first step is not going to be a benefit to you staying there. And you want to find the things to get yourself out of it, especially if your desire is to get out of it. You have to be willing to go through the discomforts of being outside of your comfort zone to do that. So it's an awesome question. Second question. Actually, let's not go to the second question. Let's go to question number 3, because that's a little bit more of a deeper one. We can always cover it. How have you dealt or coped with your anxiety during this pandemic?
I adapted to it, because it has added onto my anxiety, and it made me feel a lot more of it. Like the first interview, I was saying I was very, very anxious at that time, and I was having a lot of physical reactions and stuff like that. So yes, the pandemic did affect me a lot. How did I cope? Honestly, whether we're talking about anxiety or not, I think it's a whole thing about adaptation.
Yeah.
For everybody, in whatever situation you are, whether you're anxious or not. So I just, you know, it sucks, but you need to talk to yourself and make yourself understand, like, this is our situation. Right. This is the situation that we're going through. It sucks. I can't control it. You can't control it. I can't control it. We all can't control anything that's going on right now, unfortunately. So I was just trying to get used to the fact that this was it for now. This is the situation. This is our life right now. So I kind of just kept doing what I was already doing.
Yeah.
But I was just adapting to it. So you know what? For me, honestly, the pandemic has helped my anxiety, as crazy as it sounds, just because it has given me the opportunity to take care of it a lot more.
Sure.
So instead of letting it, you know, make me like develop more of it, or let my anxiety grow on me, it kind of brought me the other way around.
Okay.
Yeah, so again, how did I cope? So with the time, the extra time that we had, I used it wisely. I used it for myself, like I mentioned before. Um, I just honestly, that's really what it was.
Yeah,
It's
can't
just
yourself.
use it. It's really what it is. Honestly, there's nothing much to it. It's use your time wisely.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time we complain that we don't have time, but now we do.
Yeah.
And as much as everything else sucks, like we can't work, we can't do this, we can't do that. Well, you know what? You can work on yourself.
Right.
And that's what I did. That's how I used it. I took the pandemic and I said, you know what? Fine. It's the reality of it. Let me use it and use it for this instead.
Right.
So instead of feeding my mind like negative thoughts about it, I mean, yes, we still have thoughts. We still have our opinions about what's going on.
Sure.
But I try to just feed it a little bit more of like, okay, well, let's look at the positive side.
Yeah.
More time, more alone time, which is good for me because I was always around people. So maybe being alone is what I needed.
Yeah.
And then again, like I said in the beginning, I took out some stuff that I used to do back then, old hobbies, watched some shows, developed a new routine, going outside for walks, taking baths, lighting a candle. Like I never used to do this stuff when I was super busy.
Yeah.
I baked a lot more. I cooked a lot more. I fell off of that a little bit, but again, you readjust. You readjust. But it was the time for me to be doing all these things, and it helped me cope.
Yeah.
That's really the only thing that helped me cope. Yeah.
Wow, great points there. That's awesome. And again, changing your mindset and adjusting and adapting, it's not going to happen in one day. It's going to happen over time, but you have to be willing to commit to doing the small things one day at a time, one day at a time, one day at a time. One of the interesting statistics or a piece of information that I mentioned in one of the episodes of the first 5 that I did this week about negative information versus positive information and how we absorb it. It takes 12 seconds for the brain to actually absorb it, for it to become a registered like thought or expression or feeling. I'm talking about positive information. So the more that we continue to put that into our minds, we can actually reprogram our brain to recognize the positive first, as opposed to always identifying the negative. And that's just a vicious like cycle that we're all part of. We often have a habit of just always looking at, the negative of this, like us as trainers, when we try to encourage our clients and say, look, you were able to do, this many squats. Yeah, but I didn't do this. Okay, but you were able to hit this number of reps doing this movement. Yeah, but I still weigh this. Like it's always looking at the other side. Whereas look at the things that you're building against. Like when you're running this race that we're in right now, if you line it up to being a certain distance, 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers, when you get from zero to 3, and you say, man, I still have another like 7 to go. Think of it that if you've never run 3 kilometers in your life, you just ran 3 kilometers. That's a huge accomplishment. Take that small amount and build on that, and build on that, and build on that. And it's the little things that we have to do that's going to definitely help us to get through trials and time like this right now. And definitely some great points that Tania was mentioning. Go back to the things that made you feel good, that made you feel happy, and embrace those as much as you can now that we have the time to make it happen. Question number 4. What is the importance of seeking help?
It's very important. It's probably the most important part of it. I was actually just talking about this today with a friend, and I was saying how it was really important for me, and it still is very important for me to have at least one person that I can trust with this, that I can talk to about this, that I can express how I feel, or that I can simply know that I can just call up and she doesn't even need to say anything, but just to be there with me.
Right.
If I'm having an anxiety attack, just stay on the phone with me. But it's important to have these people.
Right.
And in order for you to have these people, you need to seek that help. They won't just come to you like, oh, I feel like you have anxiety, let me be your anxiety friend. Like, no, it doesn't work like that. Not everybody can read through you. You know, not everybody can read your mind. Again, we put up a front. So, like we said in the first interview, a lot of people would never think that I had anxiety, right? So it's your job, your responsibility to first, understand what it is you have, what it is you deal with, accept it, and then go seek for that one person you can count on. And for me, it's very important because you never know. Like, I've had, experiences, like I've mentioned before, they were pretty bad. Moments of like anxiety attacks that I really, really, really needed that person with me, not only for my safety. Example, if I was on the road and I pulled over and I had my mom to call, that really helped me a lot.
Right.
If I didn't have somebody to call, would I have even bothered to pull over? Maybe I would have just like said, ugh, let me just get to where I want to get and deal with it. But God knows what can happen.
Right.
So not only just to have someone to talk to about it, but it's also for your own safety.
Sure.
Just because, when you have anxiety, things can get crazy. I mean, it's not to say that everybody deals with it on the same level, but I've experienced situations where I was happy not to be alone.
Right.
So that's the first thing I would say. Second thing is, if you're not comfortable, seeking help from somebody that then seek help from a therapist. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It's like talking to a friend, but it's just a friend that doesn't know you.
Yeah.
It's somebody that doesn't know you, who's outside the box. And you know what? Sometimes it's better that way too. You might feel more comfortable. You might open up more. So whichever one it is for you, I think both of them are very important.
Right.
I've never sought help with a therapist. No, I've never spoken with a therapist. I've come close to it, but never went. I actually had somebody I could lean on and count on. So I think it's really important. It's done a lot of good for me, and I'm sure it could do a lot of good for other people. Yeah,
for sure. Therapy is dope, man. Therapy is dope. I met with this. I met with a couple people in the past, but this one person, her name is Rebecca. Shout out to Rebecca. She is phenomenal. Just, you never know if you can click with somebody, and instantly we had a conversation, and I was just able to express myself, and it definitely helped for sure in moments of how I was feeling. I had experience where I really felt I had a panic attack in my sleep, which was like the wildest experience. Anybody out there who's listening, if you ever had a panic attack, and you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. It literally felt like there was a train running in my ears, and I just had this weird tingling sensation going on my arm, and instantly I thought I was dying. Like it sounds exaggerative, but
no,
I really thought I was dying. I woke up out of my sleep, and I thought, okay, maybe I just felt something, and I went back to lie down, and the feeling came back again immediately, and the feeling was so strong that I looked in the bed, trying to wake my wife up, and she's like, "You want to go to the hospital?" I said, "No, I'm fine." I was walking around my bedroom, trying to calm myself down, And I remember sitting at the edge of my bed, and I just started praying, and I said, if I'm dying, please take care of my wife. And the feeling was so real. And eventually I think I did fall back asleep, but it was such a rush of something. It's kind of hard to describe. It almost felt like you were jumping off of a building, but like 10 times over. Very, very strong. Very, very strong. So when I spoke to Rebecca about this, she said, yeah, you had a panic attack. And basically what she explained was that you've been going all this time. And even though you've had periods of time where you kind of stop in traffic, you're still going. And finally you hit a wall, and all the cars behind you and your thoughts just came at once. And I said, wow. Again, identifying the importance of why it's important to talk to somebody, why it's important to seek help. If you do need to go the professional route, or if you do have a close friend or close friends that you can talk to, as Tania was mentioning, it's very, very important to seek someone that you can speak to. I've often put my information out there to let people know, hey, if you just want to like send a voice note or send a text or call or something, there's people that need to be there to be able to help out any way that we can. I know that some people have a fear of, well, I don't know what I'm going to say. Well, you don't need to say anything. You just need to be the person on the other end, or just a person in their presence to just be there that they can lean on. You don't have to offer advice or nothing. Just be there and be a means of support. It's definitely something that all of us can use right now.
Definitely.
The next question, question number 4. How do you deal with physical stress when you're anxious?
Okay, so like I said in the first interview, it was affecting me a lot physically. It still does. When I do have moments of anxiety, I feel my anxiety physically a lot. So, back aches, stomach aches, headaches, all of, like, just everything you can think of. I feel like I felt it. Like I said before, it was paralyzing me. So how do I deal with it now? Well, now that I understand it a lot more, and I can kind of calm myself down and really talk to myself, the first thing that I really tell myself is, do you want to feel sick? Do you want to cancel on your client? Is this what you want? I don't enjoy feeling all these things. It's not fun. It's not fun always being sick. It's not fun always having to call off, or it's explaining yourself, or being called the one that always gets sick. Like, it's not fun. It takes a toll, and I just talk to myself. And now that I know how my body responds when I feel a little bit of it, I kind of just try to snap out of it.
For sure.
Go get some fresh air. Kind of just move that pain into like a pain that I can work on. More like into my head, into my mindset, and then kind of just talk myself out of it. But physically, it's not fun. It's not cool. It's not something that you want to feel. So you want to, in French, on dit déplacer le mal. So just kind of like do something to distract yourself. Example, like if my head would hurt, well, now I know how to control my headaches. So instead of letting it grow on me and get worse and into a migraine, I kind of just try to rest, take a nap, put a cold cloth on my head. Like, I'll take care of myself.
Right.
I used to just let it happen and let it grow on me, and then it would just paralyze me.
For sure.
So it's not that it doesn't happen anymore. It does, but now I know how to control it.
How to control better.
So just do what helps it. Just do whatever you need in order to feel better, and that's it. A lot of the time, it's just a question of, taking care of it. A lot of the time, again, we just brush it under the rug and say, "Oh, I'll be fine," but you're really not fine. Be honest with yourself.
Yeah, and that's very important. Again, honesty is the best thing you can be for yourself. I know some people, they don't want to be a burden to people. You have to understand something, that you become more of a burden if you don't take care of it. If you are able to take care of it and allow somebody out there to help you with it, definitely it does make a difference. And we have to be willing to do that for each other, to help each other out. It's definitely something necessary to take care of. I'm just give me 1 second. I'm just gonna.
It really just comes down to, putting the work in. That's really how I deal and cope and help myself through this physical pains. It's putting in the work. That's what it comes down to.
That's what it comes down to, for sure. That was good, because I have to kind of chop that one part out because I was in the middle of someone was asking me something and I had to respond ASAP. Where are we at now? Here we go. Okay, we're back. Okay, question number 5. I think we're at question number 5. Tips on how you control your anxiety. What do you do?
Sure. So some I already said. So, like, doing things that I love. Coloring is very calming for me. I just have a coloring book that I enjoy, and I just sit down and I color. No TV, no nothing, no phone. I try to just take that 1 hour and just color and just flow, like just vibe, just kind of be in my own little peaceful vibe with my candles.
Right.
I've been trying to get back into my baking and my cooking. It honestly makes me feel good.
Yeah.
It makes me feel just peaceful. I would do that. I take a lot of walks. I go on a lot of walks now. I try to go a couple times a week. When it's really cold, that's not really my thing, but just getting some fresh air. Getting some fresh air has helped me a lot. I used to hate it. I used to just be like, why are you always telling me to go for a walk? My mom used to always tell me, go for a walk, get fresh air. And I was like, Mom, I don't want to. Like, what the hell?
Yeah.
I don't feel like it. Like, why would it? But it really, really, really helps. Like, it really helps. You know, just being inside, again, breathing the same air, being in the same space for a long time.
Yeah.
You know, all day, all week, all month. We don't know anymore, right? So it's important to step out. Besides that, I take baths. I just kind of just redirect all my time towards me a lot of the time.
Right.
I lay down, I take naps. Listen, again, it might sound crazy to some people or like useless, but for me, it's what helps me because I never used to do that.
Right.
So when I do it, it feels great.
Yeah.
And I've been talking a lot with my clients. You know, we've stayed in contact even through this whole pandemic. Reach out to somebody, talk to somebody, see how they're doing. Kind of just distract yourself, not deal with what you're dealing with, but just to like think about something else for an hour.
Yeah.
You know, reach out to a friend, reach out to a family member. Besides that, I would say training. Training, you know, it's still something that I love to do. It's been very hard lately, but it's still something that makes me feel great afterwards. That's for sure.
That's good.
Yeah.
I noticed in your suggestions, you didn't mention watch the news.
Oh God.
Roll on your phone.
No.
Okay. And that's something that I always like try to bring this up whenever I have an interview with somebody, especially when we're talking about this topic, is the fact that, again, we can choose better. Make the better choice as to what you watch, what you listen to, you know, what you decide to read. If you're constantly looking at the news and looking at the ticker and news bulletins and stuff like that, it's only going to make you feel worse. If you're constantly looking at your phone and going, okay, I'm just going to scroll through this feed and look at different things, it's only going to make you feel worse. There is an adverse effect that it has on you when you put yourself in that environment too much. It's just continuing to keep you in the same space. And getting out of your comfort zone actually means doing something like, I'm going to take my phone with me for this walk, but I'm not going to take my phone with me for this walk so that I can take pictures to post online. It's just so that I can be aware of, you know, the time, or if I need to get in contact with somebody, I can contact somebody. You go back to the basics again. As to before we had these things, before all this information was so readily available to us at our fingertips, we have to take time to separate ourselves from that stuff. Because we are constantly bombarded with information day in and day out, minute in and minute out, constantly. And the more that we are overwhelmed and overloaded with this stuff, it's only going to make us feel worse. So as Tania mentioned, the things that she does, you know, find the things that make you feel happy, take care of yourself. And it doesn't make you selfish to do that.
No.
Because often some people have this guilt complex of, yeah, but if I do this, you know, what about other stuff, other people I have to do? I feel like a selfish person. If a person's making you feel like you're selfish because you're taking care of yourself,
that person doesn't belong in your life.
You don't want that person around you. Okay.
That's what I was talking about, your surrounding.
Yeah. If everything, your environment, people who act that way towards you, they don't really want to understand what you're going through. And they have something that they need to solve themselves. Doesn't mean you got to cut people off altogether and be mean, but you might just need to distance yourself a little bit for a period of time while you figure out yourself. You know, you can't be a source of help or assistance to somebody when you yourself need help. It makes it that much harder, right? The airplane example is a perfect example to understand that. You're sitting in a plane, the gas mask or the mask come down for oxygen. How can you help the person beside you if you don't put the mask on first?
Exactly.
So that you can breathe, you can help the other person. We have to think of things in this way too. We got to take care of ourselves mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. All these areas we got to make sure that we cover so that we can be better for our family members, our friends, our clients, our kids, you know, our workmates, our community. We just want to be able to be in a better position to serve and to help any way that we can. And if we're not taking care of us, we can't really do that. We can't make that happen for anybody else. And the last question number 6, why is anxiety defined as a disorder? That's a very good question.
So again, I'm not a specialist. I'm not a researcher. I'm not, I'm just speaking from what I truly believe and what I go through. That question actually came up from actually a couple of people.
Okay.
It's not necessarily people who don't understand anxiety or have it. It's just people who want to look at it in a different way. So basically what they're saying is, why do we have to look at anxiety in a way where it has to be labeled as a disorder?
Right.
I don't know if I phrased that correctly, but yeah. So why do we label it as a disorder?
Right.
From what I've learned, and I speak of it as a disorder because that's what I've researched. That's what I've been told. From, like, example, my doctor. I've spoken to my doctor about it, and it's labeled as anxiety. It's labeled as anxiety attacks, panic attacks, and it's like, why is it not just like, I'm not feeling well today, I want to cry today, and that is okay? And I agree with that. That's true. It's actually an interesting question. And it made me think about it as well. And I was like, you know what? It's true. Like, why do we have to label it? Like, why isn't it just okay for somebody not to be okay?
Right.
And it's not that it's not okay. It's just anxiety is defined as anxiety because it doesn't necessarily, your body doesn't necessarily have to go into a anxiety mode.
Yeah.
There's something that leads it to an anxiety mode, which is your stress. So stress is one thing, anxiety is another. I feel like, stress can be controlled, can be, it could be productive stress as well. It could be, oh my God, I'm stressed for my exam, but it'll push you, it'll get you through it, and you'll ace it, and the typical stress.
Yeah.
But there's the kind of stress where it's a stress that kind of takes over. It takes over. It paralyzes you. It you kind of feel like you're losing control. And again, it can come from accumulation. It can come from different triggers, and it brings you in a state of anxiety, which is a state where there's something in your brain that is imbalanced.
Right.
And it's all about rebalancing that. So again, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a specialist, I'm not going to go into like the whole medication and rebalancing your what's going on in your head.
Yeah.
But what levels of this and that, but it's just a response. It's your stress is responding in a way where it's creating an anxiety. And an anxiety is, like, for me, it's a feeling of something beyond stress. Like, it's like, I'm not stressed, I'm like overwhelmed. It's a feeling of being overwhelmed. It's a feeling of being overpowered. Yeah, that's really how I can explain it. So that's my answer. That's what I believe. I think that it's been labeled because not everybody has it.
Yeah.
So there has to be a reason why some people have it, and some people are literally diagnosed with anxiety, like it's a thing. It would be great to not label it because, it's true, it makes some people feel like they have a problem.
Yeah.
But you just need to understand that just because it's called a disorder, it doesn't mean that it's like a disease. Again, we've mentioned that before. It's important for you to understand it is not a disease.
Right.
When we say disorder, it's just a way of saying that it's like beyond stress, and it's something that's overpowering you. Yeah. It's something that you are losing control of. You're losing control of your functions. You're losing controls of your thoughts. So it is kind of like a disorder. It's nothing bad. To me, it's nothing bad. Like I said, I've learned to accept it. I don't feel like I am any less than anyone. I don't feel like it's a weakness. And I don't think anybody should. It's just, listen, everything is labeled now. So but you need to know that deep down, it's nothing. It's not a disease.
No, and that's a great point that you mentioned about it not being disease, and labeling things. It's, I guess, the best way to you maybe can describe it as like a complex, and complexes are not necessarily, they're not bad. It's just it's more of a challenge. Like, stress is a challenge, but anxiety is like the challenge times this amount. And that's why it has its its form, I guess you would say, like you were mentioning that
Own category. Its own
it has
category.
its own category because it's able to actually disable you. Like,
Yeah.
imagine you feel this kind of feeling, and I mean, I'm pretty sure you've had these kind of feelings before. I remember the first time I've ever felt something of a magnitude where I was able to identify it as being, this must be what it is. I was training a client in the gym. This was some years back, and I just said, I gotta go. I'll be back in a second. And I just played off. I was cool. And I remember I went upstairs into the bathroom, and I just had to like sit in the bathroom for like maybe 10 minutes. And I let my client just go on the bike, and I told her, okay, do this, and you're gonna do this. I had to play it off as nothing, and I kind of like disappeared a bit. But I had to sit down because it made me feel like a paralysis. There was like what is this feeling that's happening right now? And I remember my breathing was off, and I just tried to keep calm, and I started to breathe, and then eventually it passed. But it was enough that it didn't allow me to function normally. So when something is a disorder, it doesn't allow you to function normally. Some people are able to adjust to a disorder so that now their normal function is functioning with what's a paralysis for them or what has paralyzed them. But it's a category in itself for that very reason, because of like what Tanya was mentioning, is that it does have the ability and the power to disable you. And when that feeling surfaces and when it comes about, it's hard to actually just go, okay, snap out of it. Like when you're stressed about something, when you feel a little bit of an anxious thought or whatever emotion, you can easily go, okay, let it pass and let it go.
It's not about that. It's beyond that.
It becomes to a point where you cannot literally like move and stuff. And I understand why there's often this argument about like a label and saying, oh, I have anxiety, I have depression, because they're often terms that get thrown about a lot that people don't take seriously, because they go, yeah, you're just saying that because you're trying to get out of this. Like, just it ends up being kind of like an excuse that people make, when really it's not an excuse. This is real for a number of people. Hence why the topic of mental health disorders or mental health issues and challenges that people are facing is such a serious deal, because of the effect that it has on you and how it can have on you going forward. So it's amazing questions that people have asked, and we really do appreciate your clients and the people who are asking those questions. So if we were to provide a call to action strategy, so let's say 3 top tips that you would provide for somebody right now who might be dealing with anxiety or doesn't know, how to identify their triggers, or maybe they have these feelings and they're trying to find ways to overcome, to kind of calm themselves down and to continue to keep moving forward. What would be the top 3 things that you would suggest someone would do that would help them out today?
The top 3, there's a lot of work.
Yeah.
So the top 3, the number one thing for me is, if you have not yet taken the time to reflect on whether or not it might be anxiety that you're feeling,
right,
do that.
Okay.
If you're like listening to this interview and you're like, because it's happened a lot after the first one, I got a lot of messages like, oh my God, like that's exactly what I feel. I thought I was crazy. Yeah. If you're part of that, it's because you're feeling something beyond sadness. You're feeling something beyond regular stress. You're feeling something beyond, emotions that we can have daily, regular emotions.
Right.
It's because you're feeling something a lot deeper. So first thing, take the time to understand it, be honest with yourself, and tell yourself that before moving to number 2, number 3, you need to accept it.
Okay.
Accept it in the way like, oh my God, I have a disease. No, again, it's not a disease. It's not nothing terrible. Just accept it in the sense that you might have something that your friends might not have. You might have something that you can't relate to with somebody else.
Yeah.
So accept it. Understand that you are that person. It's just, it's not you. It's part of you.
Right.
React with anxiety to certain situations, certain triggers, and it's okay. So that would be number 1, to really understand it and accept it.
Okay.
Number 2, I would say slow down.
Okay.
Number two, it would be slow down, because I know that we are all like this. We are all on the go all the time. Like, that's our generation. We're all grinding. We're all like, not sleeping and thinking that money rules everything. Slow down. Slow down and really look at what truly matters. I get it, the grind, the hustle, you know, getting your own money, being an entrepreneur. I get it. We're all like that. We're all on our, you know, on our side hustles, but just slow down.
Right.
You can still be all of that, but also be in tune with yourself.
Right. And just to add to that one point real quick.
Yeah.
We often have this habit of glorifying this, like, gotta push, gotta grind, gotta this. People, we all need to understand something. That it's great when you have that work ethic where you work and you work hard, and that's amazing. But if you are doing things to yourself that you deem as being a hustle or the grind that is depleting you of your own energy, so much to the point where you're lacking regular cognitive function, you're not sleeping, you're not eating properly, you're not taking care of yourself, you're not hydrating yourself, you're not breathing, you're not relaxing. All these things are basically being done for what reason? Because you're not going to get the desired result you want by always going. So excellent point to slow down. Continue.
Exactly.
Go ahead.
Exactly. You said it. What you said is great. That's exactly where I was trying to get to. You know, there's no issue with that.
Yeah.
I've done that. I do that. I just do it differently now.
Right.
I take a lot more time for myself. I slow down. I still try to slow down. I'm not perfect. You know, no one is. I continuously do the work. Every day is different. Yeah. But just, relax and understand that if you're not good, all of that side hustle, whatever you want to call it, your grind, your passion, your full-time job, or maybe a part-time job, or whatever it is that you're doing, that you're putting so much energy and focus on,
right,
it's going to trash if you can't get up one morning, if you get sick, if you are mentally drained, if you have a burnout. What is that worth if you are not capable of sustaining it?
Everybody pay attention.
So that's number
Listen
2.
up. That's the key point right there.
Slow down. Yeah, slow down. And number three, develop a new routine, but also as you're developing new habits, new routines that work for you, try to unlearn the ones that you were carrying for so long.
Very important.
Yeah, that's a big word. I was just saying that today also with my friend. Unlearning. We don't talk much about that.
Boy,
that's been a big one for me throughout 2020 is unlearning bad habits, bad decisions, toxic situations, whatever it is, whatever unlearning means to you, remember it and understand that takes a lot of work too, a lot of cleaning up to do, a lot of detangling. And in order to unlearn something, you also have to understand why you were doing it.
Right.
So, you know, unlearning and then developing better habits, better routines, better choices, better ways of looking at life. You know?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Awesome. Amazing points right there. So you want to accept it. You also want to slow yourself down and recognize that being on the grind is good. Being on the hustle is good. It's amazing. It's a great story to tell your friends and to show, and people are able to see the work that you're putting in. But if it's resulting in you burning your body out, burning out your brain, you being emotionally drained, and your overall energy is just end up being terrible, what's it all worth? As Tania was mentioned too. And developing a new routine, unlearn the old habits, learn the new ones, and definitely put that into practice. And recognize again, big, huge emphasis on this, is that it takes time to develop this process. The last time we spoke to Tania was back in the spring. It's now January 2021, which shows you that it took her some months and she's still not finished yet.
No, far from
there are a lot of people who are now starting, which again, You're never late. You're right on time. If now you're deciding, okay, I got to make changes for myself. I got to start doing things differently. I got to start putting things in play, putting the process together to make things work for me. Amazing. I applaud you. We applaud you. We love that. But recognize that it's going to take time. There's going to be missteps. You're going to slip. You might fall. You might hit the ground for a little bit. But get back up, get out of your comfort zone, and just keep going with it. And realize that the changes that you make today, whether they be small, micro, mini, whatever it is, it all begins to add up over time. So everybody wants to make this big, huge jump. You know, if you're dealing with anxious moments or feelings, you're hoping, okay, I just want to eliminate it 100%. It won't happen because nothing gets eliminated in one shot. There still will always be sediments and little residue that's still there that you have to work towards scrubbing a little bit harder to get rid of. But it doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to get rid of it. It just might be the makeup of who you are, which is okay. And that's all part of accepting it, is that if this is the person that you are, that's who you are. But recognize that you're still in a position to make better choices, to take the better route, better options that are available to you in order for you to change your outcome. Make the effort to shift your perspective and do the small things that will add up into bigger things at the end of the day. Wow. So in summary, we covered Tania's comeback, how she's made those adjustments, and we're so happy to see that you've made these changes and all of this stuff that we've discussed thus far in this topic. In mental health part 2, or mental health matters part 2, we're able to dig a little bit deeper on a personal level as to how things have affected you, and tips and suggestions that have definitely helped. We really do appreciate you sharing those tips, and a lot of people will definitely benefit from this. We encourage everyone to please listen up, take a listen to this episode, and really try to glean from the information that was shared what you can apply for yourself. Even if it's just one point that you can take home and take to heart, make sure you apply that one point and see how it can build for you. To contact Tania, if you do have questions further about anxiety, if you have questions about training, her IG handle is Bloom by Lotus. Okay, you can check her out on Instagram if you want to contact her directly, especially if you hit her up, send her a DM. She'll definitely be able to provide you with some information there. But she's very, very good at sharing information with you guys, and she's very good at responding, especially if you have questions. So don't be shy to ever hit her up or send her a voice note and say, hey, I heard this episode and I really had a question for you. If you have a question for myself that want me to pass on to Tania, definitely I can do that for you as well. But if you guys just need a listening ear, someone to talk to, someone to converse with, that you feel would be relatable to your situation, even if you feel like, I'm not too sure if it'll be relatable to your situation, you realize, to remind you once again, we may not be in the same boat, but we're all part of the same storm right now. And everybody who's going through it is all within the same storm, and we're all able to help out each other in some way, shape, or form. So up next is going to be Mental Health Matters Part 3, which this time we're going to be delving into the minds of some of my guy friends. And we'll be talking about how mental health is affecting men out there. We have a couple people on that panel that's going to be coming up in the follow-up to this. As well, there's going to be an even bigger episode that we're looking forward to, Mental Health Matters Part 4. We're hoping to have quite a large panel where we'll have various people on to speak and to talk a bit more. It's going to go a little bit more in depth. It's going to be a little bit longer. Definitely the visual is going to be amazing. We're hoping to have a large group of people to be able to register and sign up for that, to be able to be part of it. Even if you just have questions to share, or if you just want to listen in to understand how people are dealing with things, to learn from some great, amazing people out there who are all dealing with the same challenges and issues that you might be going through, as myself and even as Tania are going through there. We're definitely going to be there to be able to help you guys out. So again, if you have any questions about that, more details will be to come with that. But for now, we do thank you so much for listening. Tania, thank you so much again for being part of this episode. Again, Bloom by Lotus. Bloom by Lotus, make sure you hit her up on Instagram. She's getting back into the training thing. We know that right now things are a little bit slow, a little bit challenging, but we do have other options that we can help people out. We still want to continue to help people to move their bodies and their minds, to inspire them and motivate them to continue to take one step forward to being a better person each and every day. We are definitely in line to do that, guys. Make better choices, make better decisions today. That's going to benefit you for tomorrow, to the long run, not only for yourself, but for your family, your friends, your clients, your coworkers, your neighbors, your kids, your community. Remember, people are watching you, so we want to continue to lead by example in the best way possible, guys. It's your boy, Coach K. It's Tania Vincent. Thank you so much for listening, guys. Signing out. Peace.